Welcome to this special broadcast. We're joined by Professor R Ramakumar, who is a professor with the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. I also have with me S. Harikrishnan. He's a postdoctoral researcher at Dublin City University and co-editor of ALA. I hope I pronounced that right, Hari. Hari is also a member of TNM. This is a TNM member event. We will be taking questions from members in a short while. Of course, we're here to discuss India's vaccination policy. So thank you both for joining us today. Let me start off by asking Professor R Ramakumar, why should there be universal free vaccination in India?
Okay, there are multiple reasons why vaccinations should be free. In most countries of the world, it's considered a no-brainer that it should be free. Let me try to put out at least 5 or 6 reasons why it should be so. Globally, if you ask WHO, if you ask any respectable economist, all of them will tell you the vaccine is not a packet of soap or a toothbrush or a toothpaste. The vaccine is a global public good. A global public good typically means that it has certain characteristics. One is that it should be available to everyone, everywhere, at all times, at an affordable cost. It should be easy to access. It should be efficient in the access process, and it should also be easy to administer. Right? So all these conditions should actually be met in the case of a global public good. Now, if you want all these conditions to be met at a single time, then there is no other way but to give vaccines free, and also in a universal format. That is the globally accepted principle in public health care. That's why if you look at countries which have one of the most free market systems in the world, United States or United Kingdom or Germany or France or any other capitalist country of the West, you will see that all of them have always given vaccines free of cost universally. An additional reason why this is the case is because vaccines are a public good, also because they have positive externalities. What is a positive externality? If I take a vaccine, I get a private benefit out of it, but there is also a social benefit that is arising out of it. I don't infect others. I don't pass on the infection to many people. So that means that my social benefits are larger than my private benefit. However, when I demand my vaccine, because of information asymmetries or because I don't have enough awareness and so on, I demand based on only my private benefit, not on the basis of the total social benefit that might arise out of it. So I will actually demand only a smaller level of vaccination because my private benefits are lower than my social benefit. If I demand less, supply by private companies of vaccines will also be proportionately less. Right? So vaccines will be undersupplied in the market for vaccines. So this is another reason why vaccines should be given free to all, universally. Reason number 1. Reason number 2 is that if you look at the Indian Constitution, the right to life under Article 21 is a fundamental right of every citizen. And through many Supreme Court rulings in the past, it has been made clear that right to free vaccine is a subset of or something that flows from the right to life under Article 21. So I have a constitutional right to a free vaccine, and it is a constitutional obligation of a welfare state to provide vaccines free of cost. So it's also a constitutional obligation of the Indian state to give free vaccines to the country. Number 2. Number 3 is that most of the research and development behind vaccines, most of the investments behind the capacity expansion of vaccine companies and so on have come from public sources. So if you take the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, right? If you take Moderna, they are recipients of $2.5 billion from the United States government. If you take BioNTech, which is an associate of Pfizer, they are a recipient of 400 million euros from the German government, and another 100 million euros as debt financing from the European Union. So where is all this money coming from? Taxpayers' money, right? So because the taxpayer has financed much of the costs behind the research and development of vaccines and the manufacture of vaccines, you should not ask the taxpayer to pay twice. It's like you go to a shop, you buy something, come out, the shopkeeper calls you back and says, can you pay again? Right? That's not done for a public good. So the tax taxpayer has already paid for the produce. So it's inappropriate and undesirable and unethical to actually ask the consumer or here the taxpayer to pay twice for the commodity. Third reason why it should be free. A fourth reason why it should be free is the problem of vaccine hesitancy. Vaccine hesitancy usually results because of multiple reasons like overconfidence, complacency, and so on. I will not get it. I'm inside my home. I will not get infected. I don't mingle too much with people. Or I'm a healthy person. I exercise well. I eat well, so I will be immune from infections. People think, and then there are anti-vaxxers. Of course, all these people are there, and all of this combined together to create the problem of vaccine hesitancy. But if you take the Indian case, there is an additional reason why vaccine hesitancy results, which is unaffordability. If you price a vaccine dose at 780 rupees or 1,400 rupees, that means 2 doses means the double of it, right? And you have 2 or 3 adults in the family, which means that in one go you have to pay about 5,000 to 6,000 rupees for vaccinating 3 adults in the house by paying for them 2 doses. It simply becomes unaffordable because it already, if you look at some calculations, the rough calculations, you will see that more than 50% of the monthly income is likely to be spent for vaccines if you charge at these levels, right? So unaffordability adds to or exacerbates the problem of vaccine hesitancy in underdeveloped countries like India. The final point is that a vaccine market, if it has to be efficient, transparently functioning, and also equitable, it will have to be the process of administering vaccines will have to be easy and simple, right? Here, what the Indian government did in the month of May and continues to do in a different way now is that you have, instead of having a unified, systematically functioning, efficient, transparent market for vaccines, you have fragmented the vaccine market considerably. What have you done? There is a price for union government. There is price for state government, separate for Covishield and Covaxin. Then there is another price for private hospitals. Then again, differently for Covishield and Covaxin. You have basically created competition between center and state, between states and states, between states and private hospitals, between private and private hospitals. So there are so resources being spent on unnecessary competitions in a fragmented market. And as a result, what will happen is vaccines will be suboptimally provided to the not just the intermediaries like state governments and private hospitals, but also for the ultimate beneficiary, the consumers, the citizens. I was saying that these are the 4 or 5 reasons that I listed. One, it being a global public good. Second, it being a constitutional obligation of the Indian state. Third, it should not, the taxpayer should not be asked to pay twice, publicly funded. Number 4, unaffordability exacerbates and complicates the problem of vaccine hesitancy. And fifth, the problem of easiness in administering the vaccine, which is, that is, the vaccine market should be equitable, transparent, and efficient. And that can happen only when the vaccine market is unified and systematically set up. Fragmentation, like India did in the month of May, actually drains the vaccine market of efficiency, transparency, and equitable distribution of vaccines. And these are the reasons why we should be giving 100% of vaccines free of cost to every citizen in this country.
Thank you for laying out sort of the reasons why all sorts of vaccination should be considered by a public good. We'll get to talking a little bit more in detail about the revised policy. But before we do that, I want to quickly sort of look in hindsight on what is now called the liberalized vaccination policy, which is what India had a month ago. And the Prime Minister now has revised 3 days ago, in which it was 50% was set aside for the government, central government, 25% for the states, and 25% for the private hospitals. My question is this, and this I think goes back to the 5th point of the 5 that you mentioned earlier, is that we get to hear the word government's buyer's monopoly being thrown around quite a bit, right? The importance of having this monopoly for the central government and how that is essential to having a transparent and equitable distribution of the vaccines. Can you tell us a little bit about how the old policy that India had. What was the problem with it? Why, how did it give up this government's monopoly? And what was the problem of doing that? And what did it lead to?
Look, the idea, while the name of the policy was liberalized vaccine policy, it was hardly one that was liberalized to begin with. That's a misnomer, because a market is something where the quantity and the price are freely decided by the economic agents. Okay, in this case, if you go through the affidavit of the government of India to the Supreme Court, they will tell you that both quantity and price we have already fixed, right? And if you have both quantity and price already fixed, where is the market remaining? And why are you calling it liberalized? Point number one. Okay, so the name is a misnomer. But let's get into the problem. Even though they did this according to the affidavit, we'll get into the problems of it. Now, did anybody in the central government think of such a liberalized vaccine policy in the month of March or early April? No. This thought about changing the vaccine policy is something that happened after the 7th of April. Till the 7th of April, the vaccine distribution in India was going on smooth. Everyone thought that we are actually raising our daily vaccination rates consistently. We could even go up to 60-70 lakh per day. That was the idea, because on the 6th or 7th of April, if I remember correctly, we were actually providing 42 to 43 lakh vaccine doses per day in India. And that's substantial. That's substantial. Okay. So it's only later that we figure out that that was not based on day-to-day production, but based on the stockpiles of vaccines that vaccine companies had from January onwards. It was using those stockpiles that this smoothness was sort of created. But once the stockpiles were exhausted, and then you had to then depend upon day-to-day production to meet day-to-day needs of vaccines, the reality kicked in. Okay, and the reality is that you simply did not have enough vaccines. Your vaccine capacity, production capacity of vaccines in India is extremely inadequate. Okay, look at. Let me sort of give you a simple example. If you want to vaccinate everybody above the age of 18 in 12 months, 1 year, okay, how much vaccines do you need? There are 97 crore people like that. That means double of 195 crore doses you will need, 2 doses, right? Then that means if you want to finish this in 12 months, 1 day you should give at least 55 lakh doses, 5.5 million doses you should give on a daily basis. What is the production capacity of Serum Institute of India? According to the central government, the Serum Institute, which is wrong, I'll come to that a little later. According to them, the production capacity is about 6.5 crore doses per month in Serum Institute of India. And for Bharat Biotech, it's about 2 crore doses per day, that is Covaxin, right? Now, if you put this together, you should be producing 8.5 crore vaccines doses per day. Sorry, per month. I'm sorry, 8.5 crore vaccine doses per month. That means that if you convert it into a daily basis, you should be giving at least 26 to 28 lakh doses per day. How much did you give in the month of May? In the month of May, if you see, you actually provided only 6 lakh doses. If your production capacity is 8.5 crore doses per month, why is it that your vaccination rate for a month standing still at about 6 crore doses per month? That means you don't produce 8.5 crore doses per month. Your production capacity is overstated. Okay. Now, this was what the government gave to the Supreme Court as an affidavit. Okay. The problem began not in May. This is the figure I gave for May. In May, we gave only about 19 lakh doses per day on an average. Okay. In April, it was slightly more. That is because from April 1 to April 7, you had substantial vaccination rates. After April 7, the reality, as I said earlier, kicked in, and you simply had to depend on day-to-day production, and you are not producing enough. And on a day-to-day basis, from there onwards, you were giving only about 15 lakh doses, 16 lakh doses, sometimes 12 lakh doses, and some days it's simply not available. There was one day in which it was even less than 10 lakh doses per day, right? Now, that's when the central government realized that they have to change in their language, change the narrative, right? Too much of negativity is going on, too much of shortage is coming, too much of adverse news in the media. Let's change the narrative. Let's inject some positivity to the discourse, right? Positivity, their word. So if that's how the whole idea of a liberalized vaccine policy comes in. I'll explain why and how. But before that, I need one more point to be made, which is price. Now, till April, the government of India was procuring as a single procurer from both Serum Institute and Bharat Biotech at 150 rupees per dose. Now, ask any expert in the vaccine sector, they will tell you that the average cost of production of a vaccine dose is about rupees 30 to rupees 80 per dose. Okay, let's consider 80, the higher level. Sometimes it's 30 also, but let's take 80. Okay, at 150 rupees plus tax, you're actually getting close to 90 to 100 is your cost. You're getting 150. This was unacceptable to vaccine companies. The vaccine companies said that they actually paid with these normal profits. If you remember the NDTV interview of Adar Punawala on the 6th of April, he said that normal profits are not enough for us. We are actually looking at super profits. Okay, and what is a super profit in another interview to ANI? Right now, if that putting pressure on the central government to change the vaccine policy where the regulated price of rupees 150 per dose was being followed. They wanted it to be raised. They were lobbying with the government to raise that price, right? And the government had to raise it, and that required a change in policy. Okay, so there are two contexts here. One, vaccine shortage and the political impact of it. Number two, the economic question, which is what should be the price of a vaccine dose. Right? So the liberalized vaccine policy is thought about, one, where the central government is kept safe. It continues to pay 150 rupees per dose, but prices are raised for everybody else, and you increase the quota that should be directly procured and administered by the others. Who are the others? State governments and private hospitals. You provide them with higher prices. They have to foot a higher bill to buy these vaccines, while the central government sits pretty with 150 rupees per dose, right? And it can also publicize that it's giving free to all, because it's a low price. It can give free to all, right? The other guys have to pay 400 and 600 rupees. They obviously can't give it free. Even if they have to give it free for political reasons, the bill they have to foot is too high, right? So they put 50% on states and private hospitals. So basically, that higher cost will be there. The prices will be raised, and those higher prices will be borne by state governments and private hospitals. Problem of price is partly solved. Number two is what? The problem of politics. Right? The question of vaccine shortage and the political cost that it might entail. So the vaccine shortage is going to continue. When does that realization come for the central government? By the second week or so of April, it becomes clear that vaccine shortage is going to be here for a long time. We are not going to produce even at very defined at very liberal levels, we are not going to produce more than 25 to 26 lakh doses per day. Now, if that is the case, then criticisms will come. There will be political accusations on the central government. So you have to devise a strategy whereby the central government can evade the responsibility and accountability that entails of providing adequate amount of vaccines. If it gives 50% to states and private hospitals, if there is a vaccine shortage, it can say that it is because the state governments did not order on time. It is because the state governments did not pay on time that there is vaccine shortage, not because of the prime minister or the central government. This was the political objective behind the liberalized vaccine policy. So one, you managed to raise price and open the window for super profits for these vaccine companies. Number two, you could successfully evade all responsibility for a future shortage of vaccines. But come May, the month of May, the problem got even more complicated, right? That is, they did this with an objective, but it backfired very badly. The central government received enormous amount of criticism for higher prices on the one hand and vaccine shortages on the other hand. The whole strategy of putting the blame on states did not work because states stood united. States like Kerala and Punjab and others wrote letters to the Prime Minister and said, you have to do it. It's not our job. right? And that's why the change of policy was necessitated. It is pure political pressure that has necessitated at least a partial withdrawal of the liberalized vaccine policy. The problems remain. Maybe we could take it up as part of another question.
Right. That actually brings me to Amu Joseph. She's a TNM member. She's also a senior journalist based out of Bengaluru. Amu, you can ask your question. Unmute yourself first.
Yeah, thank you very much for that very detailed and clear argument for universal free vaccination to begin with, and also for unpacking the real underlying reasons behind the so-called liberalization of the policy in April. I would very much like you to know what you think of the recently modified policy, which also seems to have been prompted by external factors, not only the political one that you've mentioned, but also the Supreme Court.
So let me try to answer your question as to why they were forced to change. Let me begin from that. That's where I ended my last response. So both the economic side and the political side of the liberalized vaccine policy was severely criticized. There was enormous public anger. Opposition states were getting together. That was one part of the story. The other part of the story is, of course, the intervention of the Supreme Court. Right? The Supreme Court intervened in the matter suo moto, and they heard the case. And so the government of India, whenever they gave an affidavit to the Supreme Court, they were actually walking into more and more trouble, because they had to reveal more and more. And the more they revealed, the more it came out that they were hiding more and more from the people, right? So all these data related to what is the production capacity of Serum Institute, of Bharat Biotech, all that we came to know officially for the first time from the affidavit. Okay, that's how we come to know that actually if all these statements are true, then we should be giving at least 8.5 crore doses per month, but we are giving only 6 crore doses per month. So there is some problem. Somebody is lying somewhere, right? So that is one. The Supreme Court also chastised the central government consistently for the anti-people nature of this whole policy. And in the latest order, it called it prima facie arbitrary and irrational. Okay, and the Supreme Court consistently made this point that under Article 21, there is a clear case for right to free vaccines, and you cannot overlook that constitutional obligation of the Indian state. So there was clear nudging on the part of the Supreme Court. Though they did not make any harsh statement or give any harsh direction. Now, even the change in liberalized policy is not complete. It's only partial. Okay. Why do I say it's partial, and why do I say it's still problematic? For the following reason. 25% is still kept for private hospitals. Now, why is this 25% kept for private hospitals? I can only see one reason why it is kept for private hospitals, because it will continue to keep that window of super profits open for these private vaccine companies. They can sell to these hospitals at exorbitantly high prices and earn a good profit from it, because the rest they will have to sell to the government at a regulated price. Even if that regulated price provides you normal profit, they're not happy or satisfied with that normal profit. They want super profits, and they want the 25% window open for those super profits to be made. That is reason number one. The other problem in this policy change is that this essentially is reservation for the rich. Right? You price a vaccine at 1,400 rupees per dose, right? You think anybody, even from a lower middle class household, will actually go and get 2 doses for 2 or 3 people, members in the family? Hardly. They'll wait for the government dose to become available for free. That will be very late, right? By the time the third wave may come or more mutants may arise, it will affect the overall healthcare situation in the country. So this 25% reservation for the rich, in my view, is supremely unconstitutional. Right? Now, if you have taken up the state's 25%, the same rationale can be and should be used to take up the private hospitals 25% also. No, I don't have any problem in governments procuring at the regulated price and maybe distributing 5 or 10% of that quantity through a private hospital. I have no problem. In fact, till the April 30th, we actually had that system prevailing. The state governments or central government purchased it, gave it to state governments. State governments, based on requirements, gave a small quantity to private hospitals, and private hospitals gave it out at a small service charge of 100 rupees per dose. That was working rather well. Okay. And this liberalized policy basically disturbed that kind of a equilibrium that we had. It changed the whole policy, and then it has changed it again now. But the 25% window continues to remain, but at a substantially high price. And that, in my view, is nothing but perverse policy, and it amounts to reservation of vaccines for the rich. And that makes it unconstitutional in any way you look at it. Okay, so these are the two important problems I see in the changed vaccine policy also, and that is why I hope the Supreme Court will intervene again and ask the central government to withdraw the 25% for private hospitals also, and like every other enlightened welfare state in the world, it will take up 100% of the procurement and give it to people free of cost. I hope that we will ultimately arrive at that ideal state.
Thank you very much. And I think that sort of fits in well into the next question, which Ayush, who's also a TNM member, had. Ayush, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. It's
Ayush, could you speak up a little bit, Ayush? We can't hear you clearly.
all right, sure. Am I audible now? Right. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I didn't realize I would get to ask a question. So my question was kind of relating to the claim of super profits required by Serum Institute of India for their like, I think what they said was that they needed to earn super profits so that they can reinvest it into to get greater production capacity, right? And that's the reason why they're not happy with that 150 rupee price. So my question is that I want to know what you think of this way of increasing production capacity, that they need to earn super profits for it, and if there are any better solutions out there to kind of ramp up the production capacity, which I guess is required.
Okay, so let's get something straight with Serum Institute of India. Serum Institute of India is a highly fortunate company in India. It's a Fortune 500, but it's also fortunate in a different sense. Why is it so? Where has much of the production capacity of Serum Institute of India today come from? Okay, let's go a bit into not too much of history. 15 years ago, in 2004, the WHO examined the vaccine situation in the world. Okay, if tomorrow there is a pandemic or an epidemic that breaks out, does the world have adequate vaccine production capacity? This is the examination that they did. Their analysis showed up an answer: no, the world does not have adequate vaccine production capacity, and it has to be created if the world has to be ready. Okay, so they created what is called as a Global Action Plan, GAP, in 2005, which was to last up to 2016. And based on, and Gates Foundation was part of it, other charitable foundations were part of it, WHO spent its own money and so on. So they basically gave grants, not loans, grants of billions of dollars to companies across the world, in India, in South Africa, Brazil, etc., to create vaccine production capacities. And they gave $2.5 billion to Serum Institute of India to expand production capacity in influenza vaccines. That was the name given at that time, influenza vaccine or a flu vaccine, okay? Because we didn't know coronavirus will break out at that time. Now, between 2005 and 2016, Serum Institute received this money of about 2 to 2.5 billion US dollars and expanded their production capacity. So by 2016, they were substantially benefited from this grant, not loan, grant from the WHO. Okay. Now, this was in the production of influenza vaccines. There's a beautiful story that was reported in The Wire a few weeks back, where they showed, look, most of this vaccine production capacity in Serum Institute was in the production of influenza vaccines. But what the Serum Institute did when the COVID vaccines became available is that they repurposed the same laboratories to actually convert them into making COVID-19 vaccines for AstraZeneca, right? Plus, they received yet another grant, not loan, grant of 300 million euros, $300 million, I'm sorry, from the from the Gates Foundation and the WHO, okay, in November of 2020 to further expand production capacities. So they are recipients of huge amounts of grants, public grants, okay, from WHO, Gates Foundation, etc., both between 2005 and 2016, which created their base in being a monopolistic vaccine producer, and then again $300 million in November 2020 to further expand capacities, which they are currently doing, right? So this whole question of they taking risk, they taking making enormous amount of risky investment, and they wanting a super profit to get back profits and so on is all nonsense. Okay, they have been a highly fortunate company because they are in a business where nobody else has enough foothold, okay, which is vaccines, and they have exploited that presence of theirs to the hilt, and they have extracted maximum amount of money. They make 5,000 crore rupees of profit. Okay, and you are asking about they're taking risks with about 300, 400 crore? Hardly. Right? No, that's not the way their economics is structured. So the demand for super profits is absolutely unjustified and unethical. Okay, a normal profit is, look, there is another point here. Look at the quantity they are going to handle. See, profits are determined not by prices but also by volumes, right? Look at the volumes that they're going to handle. 2 billion is what they are going to put out in the next few months. And that you are having 100% profit about 2 billion doses, right? That's extraordinary. Even if the profit per dose is small, look at the volumes you will be handling. It's a windfall gain for vaccine companies like Serum Institute. So the argument that they need higher prices because they need super profits to create investment is complete nonsense.
Thank you, and I want to have a sort of a follow-up question, because it's quite clear now from what you're saying that these companies aren't going to be very generous and give about vaccines at a price that's affordable for a lot of people. But my question is, obviously, even under the new revised rules, there are two ways. So there's 75% procurement for the central government, 25% for the private hospitals, and it is from this 25% that the companies are going to gain more profits, because that's where they're selling it at like a higher price, right? My question is there anything within the revised provisions to make sure that a certain percentage of the production goes automatically to the central government, or is it easy for these companies to pick where they sell and in the process make sure that they sell more to the private hospitals where they can get more profits?
Look, there are some checks and balances in the system. There is no doubt about it. Okay, on the whole, this ratio of 75-25 will hold, primarily because the Supreme Court is also watching it carefully. I don't think there will be substantial deviation from this ratio. Okay, let's be fair, let's state the facts as they are. Okay, maybe there'll be 70-30, or maybe there'll be 80-20, but you'll be close to 75-25. That is not the problem. The problem is that at a time what will be available will be substantially distorted. Okay, now at the end of the year, if you take the quantities and see, these ratios may hold. But if you take specific weeks, specific months, etc., there will be substantial deviations from the agreed upon ratio of 75-25. Even for May, for example, today's Indian Express has a very interesting news item whereby if you compare how much stock the Maharashtra government had and how much stock Maharashtra's private hospitals had, Mumbai's private hospitals had. Mumbai's private hospitals had substantially higher amount of vaccines in stock compared to Mumbai's government stocks. Okay, so there will be many periods where these ratios will simply not hold, and that will create problems and distortions in the distribution of vaccines, no doubt. Okay, but I feel that the broad ratios may be kept, but the real problem will be that 25 is reserved for the rich. I think that's the real problem in this story. And that's what if you take any question of proportionality in the Supreme Court parlance or legal parlance, this simply will not hold, because keeping 25 is not a small amount. It's a fairly substantial amount, quantity. 25% at more than 1,000 rupees per dose is simply not acceptable in any society that looks at justice and fairness with some amount of respect. No.
See, as usual, after hearing you for 15 minutes, the context of the question changes, you know. So when I started, obviously, I thought I was asking a smart question, but after hearing you, I am far better informed.
That is a compliment or a backhanded compliment?
No, I'm far better informed. It's not wiser. It's a compliment. See, a couple of things, quick mathematics. 25% reserved for private sector, which means 50 crore doses are going to be done by the private sector. 200 crores, 25%, 50 crores. We have 1.5 crore taxpayers, which means, assuming that the taxpayer can afford the money, I thought it should be 3% for the private sector, or 0.75%, sorry, one. But as a taxpayer, can I not pay? Even though you said double taxation. So I feel criminal to take it free when it's so much more. I got my sons done in Apollo Hospital, both the doses, you know, is quite comfortable. Disclaimer, I'm a director in Apollo, one of the Apollo hospitals also. So I got both them done free. Not free, 1,500 rupees. But it hardly dented anything. I didn't even feel I was being double taxed, as you said. And if you say 3%, doesn't that make more sense than 25%? And 3% definitely is the Mukesh Ambani, the Anna Isaac, the Harikrishnan, possibly, you know, sorry, we all can afford it. We are in the 3%, we pay our taxes. That is my question. So when you say free, isn't it slightly extreme in that context, though the arguments were excellent?
Look, if your argument is true, that let the rich go and pay for vaccines wherever they can, okay? Why is it that there's not even a single developed capitalist country in the world which is practicing that rule? Why is it that it's not happening in the United States? Why is it not happening in the United Kingdom, Germany, France? Look at any developed capitalist country of the world. Why are they not allowing this principle to be functional? That let the rich go and get their vaccines from a private place, and the government will stay for the poor. That basically distorts the vaccine market. Okay, it creates fragmentation in the vaccine market. It disturbs the process of distribution of vaccines. It creates a problem of access to vaccines, which these countries are not ready to accept. That is the reason why they are all, most of them have opted for free distribution of vaccine. Now, in India, you have a problem. What is that problem? That your public health system is very underdeveloped. Okay, and you have a lot of private hospitals, more than what they should be. Clear about it. Okay, for a poor country like India, we have too much private hospitals, and that's why out-of-pocket expenses in healthcare are very high for a country like India. Now, given that, private hospitals can be argued to have a role, no doubt about it. I'm not denying that role at all. That is why I was saying that till April 30th, the system was functioning fairly well. What is that? I got my first vaccination, Covishield, from a private hospital. I paid 150 rupees for my vaccine, which was a service charge, which was charged by the hospital. Now, this was from a small allocation made by the state government of Maharashtra. I live in Mumbai, state government of Maharashtra, to private hospitals based on a day-to-day requirement. That's all. There was no 5%, 10% calculation. They said, this week, give us a little bit. We will distribute it for people at a small price. They gave it to those and they distributed it. This system was working well. It may have been 2%, 3%, up to 5%. And I'm sure it's not more than 5%. I'm fine with private hospitals giving out up to 5% of vaccines. There is no problem. Okay. But 25% is too high. right? No, your 50 crore point, I have a problem with your number, 50 crore. You know why? You are assuming, by saying 50 crore will be given from private hospitals, you're assuming that 50 crore people have the financial capacity to pay for that vaccines at that price. They don't have. Okay. So after a point, private hospitals will exhaust their demand. In a poor country like India, you cannot have 50 crore people paying 1,000 rupees or 1,300 rupees per dose. It's simply not, it's not going to happen, right? So basically, this will go on for 2 months. It'll disturb the whole process, distort the whole vaccine market, and then finally you'll have to go back to 100% procurement by the center. Do it now. Make it simple now. Make things easy to administer now. That is what the world is doing. Why is India standing? Why is India doing things so differently from the developed capitalist world? Nobody is asking for socialism here. We are asking you to be a good capitalist country, right? With a proper welfare state mechanism. Give vaccines free of cost. You have kept 35,000 crore rupees in the budget for purchase of vaccines. What on earth were you doing it for? You are doing it for purchasing vaccines, right? What else is it to be spent for? Not for R&D, because there is another 900 crore COVID Suraksha mission that is there for vaccine R&D. So don't mix up with this 35,000. That's one. Number two, you have something called PM Cares Fund. Okay, we don't even know how much money is there in PM Cares Fund. Tell me, anybody here, can you please tell me what is the total amount of money that is now available in the PM Cares Fund? People have filed RTIs. They have told it's a national security problem and it's been returned. Right? So some leaks actually say that there's 10,000 crore, 15,000 crore, etc. is there, but nobody knows. So there is this money. It completely beats me as to why the policy was changed on 19th April. Something which was working rather well, a policy which was simple, easy to administer, safe, universal in format, free for all. You suddenly change it one day. Why? What is the rationale for changing the policy? There's only one rationale that is provided by the central government for the change in policy. States asked for it. And it is now clear. Yesterday, there's a brilliant article in Alt News which points out only one chief minister has asked for it, Mamata Banerjee. Okay, and I don't take Mamata Banerjee seriously on anything, so I don't. No sensible person should take her seriously. So if you just one chief minister asking for it means that the whole country has to change policy? No, she just wrote a letter to the prime minister, give us some freedom in buying vaccines, that's all. You change a whole policy based on that? That's also bad policy if you change your policy like that, right? So there is no rationale that is reasonable that has been provided on why the policy was changed on 19th April.
All right, we have another TNM member, Vijaya, who has a question. Vijaya, unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. So I had two related or unrelated questions. One is on how better we can make vaccines accessible, because this whole thing of CoWIN portal registration, we don't have a sense of stocks. I mean, not even, the upper middle class does, leave alone those who are not IT savvy, etc. That is one. And the second is the Supreme Court had asked the government, why don't you use your powers and override, the Patents Act and make the vaccine production generic, right? So can this happen? Do you see this happening at all?
Okay, there are two very distinct questions that you have asked. Let me try to answer them separately. The first is CoWIN. It reminds me of the period of the Aadhaar debate, and we used to make fun of it as the solution in search of a problem. Okay, so Aadhaar was actually a solution in search of a problem. So wherever you have a problem, you'll fit in Aadhaar. If school attendance is low, Aadhaar dalo. Ration card mein problem hai to Aadhaar dalo. So this was it basically was a solution in search of a problem. Okay, where to fit it in was being. So CoWIN is actually designed by the same people. R Sharma was the Director General of UIDAI. He is again in charge of CoWIN. Okay, it's modeled in the same format, but it has basically made a simple problem more complex. and it has made the problem of access even more serious for Indian people. To begin with, it is in English. Number two, it needs internet connection, and it doesn't just need internet connection. It also needs some amount of ability to maneuver the app and to book the right spot at the right time. The slots open at 6:30. Then it's like, in my college days, I used to stand at the Trivandrum railway station at 4 a.m. in the morning for the Tatkal window to open. Okay, and at 4 o'clock you'll be standing at the railway station gate to open, and then at 6:30 the peon will come and open it, and then there will be 100 people sprinting for about 200 meters to reach the window. And even if you are number one in the window, sometimes you don't get it, right? So the Tatkal experience is being recreated with COVID also in a much more serious way. The COVID is inaccessible to many. It's in English. It requires internet, and overall, and on top of it all, there are no vaccines. Okay. Now, basically, it has been created as a result, what happens is a lot of state governments are asking for more freedom or autonomy in terms of designing the vaccine distribution system. Okay, who to give first, who to give second, who should be the priority group? Should we give it in homes? Should we give it in camps, or should we simply make it demand-based? Okay, all these are questions which are best left to the wisdom of the state governments, because they have enormous amount of experience in running public health programs. The earlier universal immunization program, polio vaccine, measles vaccine, they know how the thing works. So it's best to leave it to them to decide how it works. But no, you want a database, so you want a solution in search of a problem, right? So you want an app, you want to create a database. Yesterday I hear that if you have $750, you can actually buy a large part of the COVID database, including your personal details, Aadhaar numbers, and so on. They're available for sale. Hardly surprising, because the same thing happened for Aadhaar a decade back also, right? So the point is, this COVID has actually created more problems. It has centralized a process which should be at best decentralized. It has created a top-down diktat kind of a process where the bottom should be more flexible in order for vaccination to be more democratically available to larger sections of the society. So that is a real problem. And COVID is a real problem. And if you read the Supreme Court affidavit, the affidavit given by the central government to the Supreme Court, and the section on COVID there, you'll actually start laughing. How can a government be so ignorant of the ground realities of a country? There is no internet problem in villages. In villages, we will have group centers to book vaccine slots. None of that is going to happen in a country like India. So that's my answer to your first question. Okay. The second is more serious and more important, which is the question of IPRs. Now, India and South Africa have moved the WTO for a waiver of IPRs on vaccines produced in the West, Pfizer, Moderna, and so on, primarily mRNA vaccines. So the West is not allowing it because they are looking at maintenance of the IPR system. They think that if you waive IPRs now, then you will have to waive it on different occasions in the future also, which does not sit well with their ideological position on maintaining IPRs as a barrier to technology transfer from north to the south. All that is very clear. I need not repeat those points here. Now, India's position, however, is problematic, because what India is saying in the WTO is not the same as what it is doing domestically. And that contradiction is what is more important to note here. Why is that? There is a vaccine called Covaxin. Who has the IPR on Covaxin? It's only Indian vaccine. The other one is an Oxford vaccine being renamed as Covishield. Covaxin has an IPR that is shared by the central government of India, and Bharat Biotech. much of the research related to the isolation of the strain, large part of the clinical trials, and processes related to testing and purification, etc., was done by ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research, and the National Institute of Virology in Pune, which works under the ICMR. Right? They have done a lot of the work. If there are 12 steps in the whole process, this is from the Supreme Court affidavit of the central government itself. Out of the 12 steps in the development of Covaxin, only 5 were funded by Bharat Biotech and 7 were funded by ICMR. Right? In addition, the CSIR and the Indian Institute of Chemical Technology in Hyderabad has actually created the agonist molecule which is actually where they actually developed an indigenous process to develop the adjuvant in the development of the vaccine at a very affordable price for Bharat Biotech. So there again, the public sector played a very important role, and that is why the ICMR holds the IP or shares the IP with Bharat Biotech. Now you are sitting on an IPR. Your government is sitting on an IPR. The question is, how did you leverage that IPR for the benefit of your people, your citizens? While you're asking at WTO that IPR should be waived, have you waived that IPR in India and made that technology available to other private and public vaccine companies in India? The answer is no. There are 8 public sector companies in India which can produce vaccines. It was after so much of writing and creating so much of noise that finally 3 of them were given licenses to produce Covaxin other than Bharat Biotech. For the first 4 to 5 months, only Bharat Biotech was given an exclusive license to produce Covaxin. Remember, government is sharing the IPR. One company gets exclusive rights to produce it for about 4 to 5 months. It also gets the right to sell it to companies like Ocugen in the United States and get profits from there. Only 5% of the royalty goes to ICMR. Right? So you're allowing a private company to flourish like this. Now, if you give it to a private public sector company, you select 3 of them, and then you slowly start investing in them. But it will be at least 8 to 10 months by the time they start production. So you're looking at December or January of next year by the time these public sector units start production. That's too late. You could have done it last year. You would have started production now. So the IPR problem is very problematic because the Indian government's position in WTO and in India is completely contradictory.
I have a question next, and I think that connects to sort of something that you were saying, which is the question of how much should we have given to the public sector institutions in terms of production. And you said there was a challenge with respect to the IPRs there. But my question is, was there a way around that, at least in the sense of there was a vaccine that was being produced in India with research within India, right? Was there a way that the public sector could have been more involved in that process so that production could have been quicker? And a follow-up question is, did the Indian government get into contracts to procure vaccines early enough? Because one of the things that I remember reading a lot was European countries in like summer last year already getting into contracts with these companies so that when the vaccine is produced, they would get it. Was India late? Should they have done it quicker?
Your question is the answer. That is, look at around the world. If you look at around the world, right from June 2020 onwards, countries across the world have made at-risk investments in companies. Right? So the British governments and the American governments, the European Union's investment in Oxford vaccine, German government's investment in BioNTech, American government's investment in Moderna, all these are examples of public investment, de-risking the private sector to produce vaccines, to speed up the R&D and to expand production capacities. Every country has done that. In return, what do they get? Moderna, the price of the vaccine is around $20 per dose, the international price, but they give it to the US government at $12 or $13 per dose because the US government has funded it. Right? So this is the method that is followed across the world. In India, and that is where I have some amount of sympathy for this Adar Poonawalla, which is that though he was a recipient of so much money from WHO, Gates Foundation, and so on, he was not paid a penny by the Indian government. It is true. Okay, he was not given. He was actually asking in December 2020, how much do you want to buy from me? Please tell me. The Indian government didn't say. And he has commercial commitments abroad. He is a businessman. He has got commercial commitments across the world. He has received money from Gates Foundation and WHO. Why? He has got a reverse commitment, which is I will supply back to Gavi or COVAX of the United Nations a certain amount of vaccines over a period of time. That's why he got grants in the past. He has to repay that money through these commitments in the future. For that, he should know how much India is demanding. Now, India doesn't demand anything till January 2021. In January 2021, you place a very late advance purchase order for a small quantity of vaccines. The orders are also coming in trickles, by the way. So you can't plan for the long term. And by April, you had the problem of shortage. And then what did you do? You shut down exports. Okay. And Poonawalla is in trouble. Poonawalla is in trouble because he has taken money from abroad and he has commercial commitments abroad. He has to meet them. And he can, and his position would have been unsustainable if he has received money from the Indian government also. But Indian government has not given him a penny. It's true. Yeah? So on what basis are you standing up and asking Adar Poonawalla to sell you back at a regulated price? That's also a problem, right? The small amount of sympathy that I have for him is this, that the Indian government did not pay him any money. Only money they paid him was advance money for a future purchase, right? That is about 1,700 crore they're ready to pay. But that's for future purchase. That will be taken care of in the production cost. But he did not get any other investment from the central government, right? So that is the real problem in this whole story. Indian government did not make any at-risk investment in any private sector company producing vaccines. Number two, it has also historically over the last decade considerably defunded public sector vaccine sector. 2008, you almost shut down 3 vaccine companies. You have a vaccine complex in Chingalput in Tamil Nadu. It's still non-operational. You basically defunded public sector vaccine sector in India so that they are not able to meet the modern challenges. You've opened up the area for private companies for a long period of time. And as the pandemic hit, it was found that you were less equipped, but you had a year. If you had made these investments you are making today in Hafkind Institute in Mumbai today, if you had made it in August of last year, they would have been ready with production capacities now. So that kind of a vision, that kind of a visionary measure was also not there on the part of the central government. That is why we have to argue that the central government's vaccine policy, vaccine planning, etc., were completely off track. They completely messed up, okay? And they have nobody else to blame other than themselves.
So I just have a couple of questions and then we'll let you go. Firstly, in your estimate, how long is it going to take for India to fully vaccinate? I mean, the central government, of course, has said that by the end of the year, by December 31st, everyone will be vaccinated. And secondly, you know, this is a mess, right? As you rightly pointed out, what is the way forward? How do we get out of this mess?
No, you can't mess up a problem to the maximum and then think about how to get out of it. Okay, there is a irrationality in that question. But let me take the first question first. When will we be able to give vaccines to all? 2024 is my quick answer. Okay, at the present rate, it will be 2024 by the time you give vaccines to 100% of your 18+ population. At the present rate. Okay, now by the time children will come into the net. Right? Children's vaccines will come, and that's another 30 crore people coming into the target population, and that's going to complicate your story. Then you're looking at 2025 or 2026 as your target year for completing vaccination in India. Now, the central government says this is not all, this is wrong. Between August and December, we are going to substantially increase vaccine production in India. They have put out some numbers where they, if those numbers actually become available, it will be too good to be true, may I say. But a closer examination of those numbers will actually tell you that most of those numbers are unrealistic, because many of the numbers listed there are regarding vaccines which are currently in phase 2 or phase 3 of their clinical trials, and it won't be before August or September that they complete their phase 3 trial. Then there is you will have to submit it, you will have to get approvals and so on. That will take another two or three months, and then they will have to get into production on a mass scale. Okay, so I don't see any of these names being listed being out on mass production before December of 2021 or January of 2022. Next year, that is 2022, you may have a little higher supply of vaccines, no doubt about it, because some of these at least will come true. They will pass their clinical trials and production will start by next year. But by that time, precious time will be lost. That's the point. Okay, we should have completed vaccination by January or February of 22. Right? We cannot wait till 23 or 24. Right? So the problem of time being lost, number one, the problems of a third wave coming in, and economy being locked down again if a third wave comes in, and the economic losses, employment losses, income losses, etc., that will result from that kind of a lockdown as part of the third wave. Possibility of new mutants coming up in the absence of complete vaccination of the population. All these are substantial risks that might emerge in the intervening time. So even if your vaccine production increases in 2022, the problem is you are going to have newer challenges by that time. Children's vaccines will come, so more people will have to be vaccinated, number one. Number two is that mean if mutant varieties spread, then there may be the need for a booster dose, okay, which will one more dose of vaccine for everybody. All those complications will come by 2022. Right? So you should have completed substantial section of your population by 2021, so that you will be ready for the challenges of 2022. You have not done that. So I don't think it is easy to come out of the mess that the central government has created for itself. We are going to be very slow in vaccinating our population. We are going to be very slow in covering even the vulnerable sections of our population. Look, the earlier challenge was we will cover 30 crore by July. That was the target put up by the central government. July is going to come next month, right? You have not even reached 50% of your vulnerable population as yet, right? So that task is remaining. That is 45 plus is remaining. After 45 plus, then the rest will start. Now, will we get more amounts of imports from abroad? That will be a very normal question. That's very difficult, because most of the imports are, if you want to import it, it'll have to be mRNA vaccines. Okay, and these mRNA vaccines are not available for less than $10 or $15 per dose. Number one, so it's very expensive. Number one. Number two, because of the IPR regulations, mass production of these mRNA vaccines of Pfizer and Moderna are unlikely to begin before 2023, because the WTO negotiations would be complete on a waiver of IPRs vaccines only by middle of 2023. Okay, so that also is not going to happen. Some imports may come. Sputnik may get imported a little bit. I'm not saying that the situation will not improve by the end of 21, but my problem is valuable time may have been lost by then, and we may have walked into more complications by then, by the time we ease up supplies.
All right, Professor, you've painted a very, very bleak picture. And I think a lot of the comments right now are people are very, very scared of 2024, 2025, 2026 for children. So yeah, so it is a bleak picture that you presented. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Hari, as well, for co-moderating this with me. All right, thank you so much once again, everybody. This is Anna Isaac signing off.
Thank you.